Café Bluebeam, a 6-part mini-series on digital plan review. Bluebeam is a software designed to streamline your digital workflows, allowing you to publish, markup, and share PDF documents. So we want clients to take a break from work with a cup of coffee and learn about Bluebeam during each session. And my name is Jerica, and I am the Industry Account Manager at SolidCAD located in BC, and I handle software and training requests for Bluebeam. So for our sessions, we've invited Derek Ng, a coffee expert, to join us by sharing information on how to roast coffees at the beginning of each session. So the coffee portions will be around 5 to 6 minutes at the start, and our technical consultant will dive into Bluebeam afterwards. So the 6-part series are around 30 minutes each from May 26th to June 30th, and registration are still open for all the upcoming sessions, so feel free to register if you haven't done so yet. And we'll also be giving away coffee beans to 2 lucky attendees per session. So we'll contact you through email if you have won. So good luck to everyone. So let's get the session started. If you have any questions related to Bluebeam, please type it in the chat box and we'll try our best to answer them. If we didn't get to your question, we will send you a follow-up email. So let's get started with Derek here.
Welcome back to Café Bluebeam. Our second coffee is from Bows and Arrows and is from the Reina Padilla farms based in El Progreso and La Copa regions of Peru. This coffee contains 2 varietals, Pash and Catamor, and these coffees are grown at an elevation of 1900 meters. And today's device is the AeroPress. Don't mind mine, it's covered in a few stickers. This device is relatively new in the world of coffee, but has been adapted worldwide and very popular. Fun fact, there's a worldwide annual competition just based around this little device. We're going to grab our carafe and the cap that comes with it. We're going to insert our AeroPress paper filter. There are different filters available, some including metal discs made by different companies as well. So putting that over here, like what we did last time, we're just going to pre-warm our brewer and rinse out the paper taste here. Give it a shake, just be careful, sometimes water does get stuck in here. Pour that out. Now I'm going to grab my scale, place my device on top, like so, and coffee grinds. So I have a finer grind than the medium, but not fine where it's considered espresso. So just coarser than espresso, but definitely finer than the medium grind that we used last time. I'm going to be using 15 grams of coffee for a total brew weight of 225, making it a ratio of 15 to 1. So 15 grams of water to 1 gram of coffee. The tare out or balance out to 0. So this coffee device is an immersion style, different than the cone that we use with the Hario, whereas water continues to pour through. In immersion, the water stays in contact with the coffee, and then we're going to press it out. So this is immersion and vacuum. Starting my timer. I'm going to start my timer now. I'm going to pour the water into this chamber here. Like we did previously, we're going to bloom first. And again, I like to bloom 3 to 1. I'm going to give it a stir just to ensure everything's all saturated. And we're going to wait for a total of 30 seconds. Once we get there, we're going to top off to our total brew weight, 225. The recipe I'm using is very similar to some of the first recipes invented In the World AeroPress Championships, recipes have since evolved then, but I find this is a nice stable one to always fall back on. 225 total weight. And I'm just going to remove it from the scale because we're going to be pressing afterwards, and I definitely don't want to be pressing on my scale. We're going to be waiting for this to steep to 1 minute 30. And the vacuum top here is going to create an airtight seal. And what happens is that when I insert it, the air has nowhere to go. And when we press, it's going to force the coffee out from the filter. So a minute 30 has arrived. And we're just going to gently press like this, applying gradual pressure. Try to extract the coffee within a time frame of 15 to 25 seconds. Please keep in mind the device you're going to use to catch the coffee. Make sure it can support the weight of this push. Here's our Extractive Brew. Again, like what we did previously, just going to give this a little light stir. Just to ensure everything is well incorporated. And let's give this a taste. The tasting notes on this coffee are pear, vanilla wafer, and black cherry. Just a little quick tip, when you're slurping the coffee, think of it, for those who are familiar with tasting red wine, it's a very similar premise. So we want to slurp and then pull it over our tongue. That aerating will help accentuate the flavor notes. So this coffee is, again, easy drinking. It's very nice on the palate. It's very crisp. I am getting some of the pear notes. If I had to identify with a certain pear, it's kind of sort of like those crystal Asian pears. Kind of a warm, comforting kind of note. The sweetness will initially start off as pear, kind of finishes more like cherry. And where I definitely get the cherry notes, though, is if we think about the way cherry skin or any red berry skin tastes in our mouth, that slightly tannin feel, not in an unpleasant way, but just a little bit tart. And on the nose, I could definitely smell the vanilla. This almost reminds me of a Danish. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next video. Thanks.
Welcome to Café Bluebeam, a series of educational webinars that will help you get the most out of your Bluebeam Revu software. In today's session, we're going to take a look at the Markups List, probably the most powerful tool that separates Bluebeam from its competition. I'm Colin Gaudette from SolidCAD, and I'll be your speaker. In today's agenda, we're going to take a look at how to get more out of our markups through the use of subjects and labels. We're going to take a look at layer controlling those markups and adding custom columns within our markups list. And then finally, pulling all of those markups out to use them elsewhere. To kick things off, let's take a look at how to add subjects and labels to some of the markups in our PDFs, as well as how we can use those to better organize those markups inside of our markups list. Let's flip over into Bluebeam. And you can see that we've got a subdivision design that's out for review. As I scroll down on the pages, we can see that I've got a number of markups in here. Now those are made from the tool chest. And as I zoom in, we've got revision clouds and some comments that go along with them. Now the best part about all of these markups is they're all tabulated in the markups list. Down in the bottom corner, if I select this button, this list that was opened up can be categorized by any one of these columns. And these aren't all of the columns that are in here. Under the markups dropdown, we can select many more to show in this list. but we can categorize by subject, page, label, date they were made, and with every single one of these, as I select it, it zooms me to it, and I can adjust the status. We can accept this markup, we can reject it, cancel it, or note that it's completed. Right now, everything in this markups list is organized by subject, but we can do so much more. We can use the filtering options to filter out specific subjects, and we can only look at maybe erosion control, and it'll show us all of the markups for erosion control, or all of the stop signs. We can use these filtering options to help us get exactly the markups we're looking for, as there's hundreds added to a drawing set. What I can do, come back here, clear them all, and turn off the filtering options. Let's take a look at how to add a subject to a markup. One of the easiest ways to do that is through the tool sets. Now, all of these ones, except for the blue, seem to match the contractor toolset. If I go to the little gear here, we can toggle on details. And we can see that every one of these markups is adjusted to subject. In comparison, I have some quantity measurements in a toolset down here. If I swap this one, we can see that the subjects are different. So it's going to categorize differently in the toolset. So the easiest way to have your subject set is to have it pre-configured in your toolsets that you make your markups from. Otherwise, we can select one of these markups and go to Properties to adjust the subject right here. We can override what this initially had from its toolset. Just keep in mind that that will then change how it's categorized in your markups list. We also have labels. Now, not every markup can have labels. If I categorize by labels in my toolset, and I'll just close the properties here, we can see that only a few of them actually have a label. And what we can use this for is any measurement type of markup. So if we open up our tool chest, it's any one of these quantities right here. So we've got counts, we've got measurements for length and things like that. Any of those, as I scroll into my PDF, I can add a label over top of the actual measurement. So I've got this access road right here. And if I go to properties on this one, notice that the label icon or the label area is now available just under subject. So we have a little bit more opportunity to make each of these measurements a little bit more unique when we're creating them. Layers are another great way to categorize, organize, and display different types of markups or different groupings of markups inside of Bluebeam. Let's flip over into Bluebeam and take a look at how we can access and manipulate layers. To access the layers, we go to the two sheets looking icon right here. Hover over top of it and it says layers. This will show me all of the layers inside of the drawing, or inside of the PDF rather. If I want to add another layer, I can right click, or I can click up here and add another layer. And this might be my stormwater management system. So a number of markups that might be associated with this stormwater management system. Notice that it appears grayed out though, and the only one that isn't is this engineering markups, meaning that the only layer that's being used on this sheet is the engineering markups. Now we can toggle these back and forth, whether you want some of these markups on different layers to print or to export in our PDF summaries, and whether we want them to display. So I can actually toggle off some of these markups. If I want to add a markup to a layer, I'll scroll into this access road dimension. All I have to do is right-click, filter down to layers, and add it to my engineering markups layer, for example. Now, if I didn't want this to show for whatever reason, I can hit the little eyeball right there, and it shuts that off. We can also add child layers within here. So again, clicking down below, we can add a child layer. And maybe this is electrical. And we can make electrical engineering markups underneath that still listen to the engineering markups layer as we toggle it on and off or choose whether it prints or exports in our PDF summaries. We have a number of different ways to export layers, print layers, and sort them. And it's very straightforward on how to add things to different layers. I'll flip to another page. Down at the very bottom, we've made some traffic control signage. Sometimes we may not need all of this to display depending on the types of markups that we're looking at doing. So I'm able to go into my layers. I can see that there's stuff on the traffic markups layer, and I can toggle that off so that it doesn't show up as I'm going through and maybe doing markups for a different portion or a different aspect of this project. We can also create layer configurations. Down here, right now we have it set to the default configuration. But if I go to the filtering options, I can create a new configuration. Let's just call this test. And now this configuration, I can toggle off a number of different layers depending on how I'd like to display them. And maybe I just want to see some of the underground infrastructure markups. Well, we can save that. I'll go up here and I'll click Save Configuration. What that allows me to do is quickly toggle on and off multiple layers. So I can flip between the default with all of these visible and the test with only the underground infrastructure markups visible. So layers are very useful for allowing us to separate and toggle the display of different markups in our PDF set, separating them out from maybe different disciplines or different project managers or partners within your firm so that we can see who marked up what and be able to toggle those displays. At this point, though, I'd like to move forward and we'll talk a little bit more about the columns that you have access to inside of the markups list. But more particularly, let's talk about the custom columns where we can really drill down into your specific workflows and get the most out of the columns and the markups list that we possibly can. We can do that with custom columns, and there's 6 different types of custom columns. We have the checkmark, formulas, choice, date, numbers, and text. Some of these are going to be more useful than others, but I'd like to really drill down and take a look at the choice and the formula types of custom columns. Let's pop over into Bluebeam and let's take a look at this. I'll open up my markups list and we have access to all of these columns under the markups list dropdown. If I go to columns, I get all of the columns that come pre-configured with Bluebeam software. But down at the bottom, we can manage columns. And we can toggle the display of the different ones, of which ones we want to show in that drop-down list, but we've also got our custom columns. We can create or add new custom columns. If I click Add, we have the option to name it and then pick from those 6 different choices, like I had said. Let's take a look. Instead of creating one, I have a couple created already, and let's take a look at some of the different ways that we can use these ones. I've got assign to, so we can actually use this, if I click modify, to assign this to the different people in my industry or in my firm. We also have different item types. Now, the choice type of custom column is probably one of my favorite because we can do a number of things with it. If we go to modify, I can specify, in this case, the different types of items that we're marking up or counting for in this drawing set. I can address the subject, and I can give it a numeric value. And these numeric values in the formatting can be represented as a currency. So we can do some quantities inside of the markups list as well. I'll escape out of here and let's take a look at how we can do this. So the assign to. If I see this sanitary manhole count right here, maybe we just need to make sure that someone counts this properly. We can come back in here and we can have someone do a peer review on this, and I could assign this to Tina. Back in the erosion control though, if I wanted to look at creating a little bit more costing in here, notice I've got one piece of erosion control fence there and another piece, as I select it, across the top, but I'm missing this bottom corner right here. What I've done in my tool chest is I've created an erosion control polyline measure. When I select it, I've already assigned the item type to it. So I can come in and assign some of these measurements, and double click to finish. And I've assigned that there. So I've given that markup in there. Now, if I go back to my markups list, let's filter down to erosion control. And now maybe it's tough. Maybe there's a lot of markups in here. Let's place a filter on this. And I can actually just filter out to get the erosion control only. And I can see that I've added that last piece right here. Oh, not that one. This piece of erosion control silt fence, it's recognized the type. And as I scroll across, I've actually got a total cost here for it as well. Let's take a look at that total cost column. Into manage columns and the custom columns, I've got two different types of total cost. Let's take a look at what happened when I assigned that silt fence. So we'll go modify. In here, we're actually able to add expressions using different columns inside of our markups list. So in this case, I've actually grabbed my custom column, the item type, which had a unit value associated to it, and then multiplied that by the length. Let's take a look at how we can use this again, maybe with the rock check dams. I'll minimize my markups list, and I can add a rock check dam. Now, I want to count this one right here. Before going any further though, let's select it and see what's happening in the properties. I'll scroll down to the custom columns area, and I can see that there's nothing assigned to it. So we want our markups to be as smart as possible, so let's come down here, and because this has a subject of erosion control, I get a limited list of what I can assign to it. So I've got the silt fence and the rock check dam. I'll pick the rock check dam, and because I picked that item type, the cost comes along with it. Now, I've assigned that for 1. Let's pull this out of the way. Now that this is assigned to this markup, let's add it back to my tool chest so that I don't have to do that again. We'll delete this one, and I can see that the rock check dam with the correct item type associated to it was added to my tool set. Let's get a faster way of selecting all of these. Under the search, we're actually able to go and specify a rectangular or a search visually across our drawing. So I can select that rock check dam, and I can search the entire drawing to see all of the options, to see how many are in my entire set. Once the search is complete, I get my results down at the bottom here, and I can see every single one of these that was checked. Well, if I toggle them all on, I can choose to apply a count markup to them, and I have access to that newly created erosion control rock check dam count markup. Let's select that, and it applies it to every single one of the rock check dams that it found. Even better than that, if I go into the markups list, now I've got the rock check dams with the unit price and the total price already calculated. And we've assigned it to Ben at this point, but we're not worried about that. Let's take a look at how the total cost for the unit price in the each items was taken. We'll go back to columns, custom columns, and let's take a look at the total cost for the each. We'll go into modify, and at this point we took the count times the item type. These are just a few small examples of how we can really drill down into our workflows and get the most out of our markups list. I can't show you everything that's going to be exactly to the specifications that you need in your firm, but hopefully this kind of piques your interest and inspires you to try and pull a little bit more out of Bluebeam using some of these custom columns inside of it. Just remember that these custom columns are only added to this drawing right now. So the last thing that we need to do, if I like the item types and the total cost estimates and things like that, I need to go to the columns, down to the manage columns, and I need to export these as a column set, as a custom column set, so that then I can import them into another drawing and apply that custom column set. That's one alternative and probably the best alternative. The other option would be to save these to the profile that you use now. So any new PDFs that are started with that profile, you'll have access to these custom columns. Finally, let's talk about how to manage all of our markups. There's going to be a lot of them added to these PDFs between the different disciplines and potentially different iterations of the project. As new design drawings come out, we may need to move all of those markups forward into the new set of drawings. So we can do all of that through exporting and creating PDF summaries and potentially archiving all of those different PDF markups that we've created at this point. So let's flip over into Bluebeam and we can see how this is possible. Now, I may just clear the filter that I had there. And if we're looking to archive and maybe pull all of those PDF markups into a new set of drawings, we'll need to export those PDFs. Under the markups drop-down list, we've got all of the columns and things like that. One below it, though, is the markups import and export. So do the exact same thing, but opposite. If I go and export these markups, it takes all of the markups within the list and it exports them to a Bluebeam annotation file, so a BAX file. And we can use that to archive a round of markups. So as we pass the 60% submission, we can archive all of the 60% submission comments. I would just make sure that we name those properly and save them in the correct path, but that's how we go about doing that. If we want something that's a little bit more powerful, pull out all of our PDF markups and create a full summary of them. Just beside the filtering options, we've got this, it's called Summary, and the drop down here, so we can pull this out to an XML file, a CSV, or a PDF. Each one has its own bits of options. Let's pull this out to a PDF file though. It instantly opens up this dialog box where we're able to specify the export as. So we didn't have to just choose right then. We can still choose CSV, whatever the case. We can always append these with hyperlinks. So it's going to flash us back to this full PDF set where we made the markups in the first place. Up at the top, it specifies the actual markup set or marked up set. We can choose between all of the pages or specific pages. And as we scroll down here, we can set up markup templates or summary templates. So how our markups were set up in the markups list, we can take that and push that out to a PDF. We can set up templates at any point and just kind of save the configuration. This is the outputs portion. Then we have the filtering and sorting. So do we want to show all of these comments? Do we want to show all of the subjects? We have the option, so we can filter any of these things out if we didn't want them. And then lastly, we've got the columns. So we can go over here and pick between the different columns that we actually want to show. Initially, it shows all of the ones that are in our markups list, but we can customize it further if we needed to, and this assign to and things like that. Maybe we don't need that, so we can just keep it. We can just uncheck this. And we always want to show those empty columns if necessary for the various markups. Once it's complete, we'll click OK. And it's going to process all 48 sheets, or 48 items rather, all of the different markups, and put this into a nice PDF summary document. It'll open it up here for us, and I'll just minimize my markups list. And as you can see, as we scroll along here, it's got every single one of these markups. There's a couple pages of this now. And as there's a markup that we like, let's scroll down a little bit more. I can select this markup and it brings me directly to that markup. So we can see it in a little bit more context on the sheet that it's on. And then we can make decisions and things like that. So it's added to the very end of our PDF. And then we could just export those sheets out if necessary.
Perfect. If you guys have any questions on Bluebeam, I put my email on the chat, so you can reach us at jerica.lee@solidcad.ca. There is the upcoming session on tool chest next Wednesday as well, so please feel free to join us. And we will be emailing the coffee beans to 2 lucky attendees, so we'll contact you through email. So thank you everybody for attending, and we'll see you next week on tool chest.